2 years ago, I bought a BYD Chin for 150,000 yuan. The Chin falls within the category of plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. I made 65,000 yuan after using it as a ride-hailing car for 2 years. This morning, I checked the popular automotive information platform Dongchendi and saw an official price drop of 70,000 yuan. It's like I ran for 2 years for nothing and even lost 5,000 yuan.
Guys, Tesla has dropped its prices again. Since the start of this year, Tesla has had 2 rounds of price cuts. But have you guys ever thought about what it means for Tesla, a leader in the new energy sector, to frequently cut prices like this? That's right, the new energy market is really about to change. In front is the new Zeekr 001 priced at 260,000 yuan, followed by the soon-to-be-released Xiaomi SUV. Moreover, last quarter, BYD's pure electric vehicle sales already surpassed Tesla. If Big Brother Tesla doesn't cut prices, they really won't be able to hold on.
BYD is cutting prices, Tesla is cutting prices, and everyone is cutting prices. The new energy vehicle market will be tough on many small brands. Before buying a car, make sure to choose wisely. Don't just go for the cheaper option. The brand might disappear, leaving no one to care for after-sales service and mechanical parts when there are issues with the vehicle. If the brand disappears, you also won't be able to sell the car second-hand. China is facing economic difficulties, subsequently leading to an overproduction of goods. In response, the Chinese Communist Party has been dumping large quantities of low-priced goods onto the global market. Among these, new energy vehicles are raising concerns worldwide. The US has warned the CCP that it will take action if it continues to dump the remaining goods overseas. Recently, Japan and South Korea have joined the US and Europe in anti-dumping measures. The ongoing trade war between China and the US could escalate further, potentially isolating China economically. The Financial Times recently reported that Jay Shambaugh, an official from the US Treasury Department, expressed his concerns about China's industrial support policies and macro strategies. He pointed out that these policies are more focused on the supply side rather than demand, leading to a situation where China's overcapacity could ultimately impact the global market. The United States has expressed concerns regarding the impact on high-end manufacturing sectors, particularly within the clean energy domain. This includes industries involved in the production of electric vehicles, solar panels, and lithium-ion batteries. During a recent visit to China, Shambaugh expressed clear concerns about China's dumping of their excess products onto the international market. He emphasized to Chinese officials that the concerns are not exclusive to the US and that China should not be surprised if the US or other countries respond to their actions. Shambaugh told the Financial Times, "The rest of the world is going to respond, and they're not doing it in a new anti-China way, they're responding to Chinese policy." Last year, the European Union initiated an anti-subsidy investigation into China's electric vehicle industry. The European Competition Commissioner stated on February 17th that the EU is prepared to use trade tools to address China's unfair trade practices. A US official mentioned that the US aims to ensure that Beijing takes the issue of overcapacity seriously. This topic will be a significant part of the agenda during US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen's visit to China later this year. A China economic expert from a US think tank suggested that the US should pressure China to boost its domestic demand. The expert also mentioned that if all measures fail to change the situation, Washington will have no choice but to follow the EU's lead by initiating its anti-subsidy investigation. This will ultimately lead to substantial restrictions on imports from China. Wally Adimo, the United States Deputy Secretary of the Treasury, expressed concerns on February 23rd at the Council on Foreign Relations. He stated that China's overproduction could disrupt the global economy. Despite economic challenges that China is currently facing, such as the real estate sector, the aging population, and the business environment for private enterprises, he did not worry that China's economic slowdown would affect the U.S. economy too much. He noted that the CCP provides state subsidies for the production of electric vehicles, solar panels, and other products, following industries like steel and aluminum. These industries produce quantities far exceeding China's consumption capacity. Adimo stated that, fundamentally, the impact of China's overcapacity on the United States would be mitigated. The United States tariffs and tax credits for electric vehicles and their batteries help keep Chinese electric vehicles out of the US market, allowing for a fair competition for American companies. He said, "This is going to be a challenge for the global economy, and it's something we are talking directly with the Chinese about. They need to compete on a level playing field, not just with the United States, but with the countries around the world." Ademo also mentioned that the Biden administration is actively discussing with US partners and allies worldwide what can be done to try to curb China's excess capacity. According to China's Caixin media, various expansions will push China's photovoltaic supply side to a peak capacity of nearly 1,000 gigawatts in 2023, while the required global demand combined is less than half this number. Chinese media, citing information from the commodity industry MySteel, showed that by the end of 2023, the global lithium-ion battery annual capacity reached 22.5 million tons, with China's domestic lithium-ion battery annual capacity at 17.9 million tons. This totals to 7.95 million tons, accounting for 72% of the global supply. The increase of battery storage capacity expansion and the slowdown of demand have led to a price war. According to estimates by the American financial advisory agency firm Bernstein Research, as of last December, BYD, a leading Chinese car manufacturer, had enough new capacity in China to produce 4 million cars annually. This number exceeds BYD's sales in 2023 by 1 million vehicles. The firm also predicts that between 2023 and 2025, the Chinese car manufacturing industry will add 5 million units of capacity, most of which will be electric vehicles. A statement released by China's Ministry of Commerce on February 7th showed that China actively supports its car manufacturers in participating in global competition and has proposed a series of measures. These include supporting new energy vehicle manufacturers in establishing R&D centers abroad, cooperating with overseas enterprises, optimizing export procedures for electric vehicle batteries, shortening business processing times, and improving the system of financial support. China's growth and supply plan of electric vehicles have already alarmed Europe and the United States. The EU has been imposing a 10% tariff on Chinese-made electric vehicles, which is insufficient to stem the influx of Chinese electric vehicles. The EU pointed out that due to the subsidies from the Chinese government, Chinese cars are usually priced 20% lower than models produced in the EU. The market share of Chinese electric vehicles in the EU has recently grown from 1% to 8%, and it is expected to increase to 25% by 2025. The EU launched an anti-subsidy investigation into imports of pure electric vehicles from China in October last year. This action is viewed as a response to unfair market distortions, also attributing to state subsidies provided by the CCP government. These subsidies lower the prices of domestic electric vehicles that are sold to the EU. After a 13-month investigation, the 27 EU member states will vote on the findings and take further action. If China is found to engage in unfair market distorting practices, tariffs could be raised to at least 20%. Additionally, starting this year, Section 30D of the United States Inflation Reduction Act has come into effect. This provision prevents consumer purchase subsidies for clean energy vehicles, including electric and clean fuel vehicles that utilize battery components produced by foreign entities from countries such as China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. From 2025, these restrictions will extend to key minerals like lithium, nickel, cobalt, and graphite used in clean energy vehicles, also produced by these foreign entities, making them ineligible for consumer purchase subsidies. According to this new regulation, the number of electric vehicle models eligible for a $7,500 consumer tax credit has been reduced from approximately 25 to 13. The U.S. Treasury Department has indicated that car manufacturers are adjusting their supply chains in response. Alex Partners, a business consulting firm, has reported that from 2016 to 2022, the Chinese authorities subsidized $57 billion for pure electric and hybrid vehicles. This subsidy has been a primary factor in China becoming the world's largest producer of electric vehicles and surpassing Japan as the world's largest car exporter. A commentator on U.S. politics, Tang Jingyuan, noted that the CCP's strategy of supporting overseas low-price dumping of goods with substantial subsidies is consistent. By dumping large quantities of products to dominate the market, Monopolistic dependence is formed, giving the CCP additional political leverage and greater economic benefits. Not only is the United States attempting to exclude components and mechanics, such as batteries and electric vehicles, from China, but Europe is also enforcing its trade restriction measures. In January this year, the French government implemented a new measure for electric vehicle subsidies, which includes a new subsidy rule that scores each vehicle based on the material used, battery type, and place of production for the carbon footprint. This regulation resulted in the exclusion of cheap Chinese electric vehicles, and many European and American brand electric vehicles were also affected due to their use of Chinese batteries. Although this new subsidy rule was suspended just 6 days after implementation due to a lack of electric vehicles meeting the standards, there are plans to restart it next year. This will have an impact on both domestically produced and imported electric vehicles and batteries that meet the standards in France. Following the United States warning to the CCP, Japan joined the US and Europe in anti-dumping measures. On February 20th, the Japanese government passed a cabinet order to extend the anti-dumping duty on electrolytic manganese dioxide imported from China for an additional 5 years until 2029. China leads in the production of electrolytic manganese dioxide, a key component used in the positive electrodes of batteries. This accounts for 70% of global capacity. Starting in September 2008, for 5 years, the Japanese government identified Chinese manufacturers as dumping this product, imposing anti-dumping duties ranging from 34% to 46%. Japan's Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry began an investigation in 2023 to assess whether to extend these anti-dumping measures. The Japan Automotive Manufacturers Association revealed annual data on January 31st. The data shows that in 2023, China's car exports surpassed Japan's for the first time, making China the world's #1 car exporter. This was the first time Japan lost the top position in 7 years since 2016. China exported 4.9 million vehicles last year, approximately a 58% increase from the previous year. The primary reason for this increase is a boost in exports of electric vehicles supported by the Chinese government. The capacity of China's electric vehicle industry far exceeds domestic sales. Wendy Cutler, Vice President of the Asia Society Policy Institute and former Office of the United States Trade Representative, recently told the Wall Street Journal that China's domestic demand for EVs is about 26 million units per year. After meeting domestic demand, Chinese car manufacturers still have about 10 million units of capacity to sell. Due to overcapacity in China's electric vehicle production, last year saw a price war in the Chinese EV market. This also expanded to overseas markets. BYD quickly led the market with its overwhelming price competitiveness, taking part in both the battery and EV sectors. Last year, BYD's electric vehicle deliveries surpassed Tesla, taking the top spot in the market with a 20.5% market share, while Tesla ranked second with a 12.9% share. This price war has expanded to the fuel vehicle market, with nearly all American, Japanese, and European car manufacturers in China finding themselves in a price-cutting dilemma. Japanese car manufacturers were affected the most. As a result, Mitsubishi Motors decided to exit the Chinese market. In response to the impact of the low price dumping of Chinese electric vehicles and batteries on the market, South Korea joined the United States and the EU in restricting Chinese products. On February 20th, the South Korean Ministry of Environment announced a reform plan for electric vehicle purchase subsidies for 2024. Under this plan, the South Korean government reduced subsidies for vehicles using Chinese-made lithium iron phosphate batteries, with subsidies for electric vehicles that purchase Chinese batteries reduced by up to 40%. Electric vehicles equipped with high-performance South Korean batteries and large passenger vehicles will receive higher subsidies. The subsidy prioritizes battery efficiency and the recycling value as the main criteria. Although LFP batteries are cheaper, they have a lower energy density, which results in a shorter driving distance per charge and decreased reuse value. This is negatively impacting the environment. In contrast, South Korean-made lithium nickel cobalt manganese batteries offer shorter charging times and longer driving distances at the same capacity. Some industry insiders believe that South Korea's new subsidy policy is aligning with policies like the United States Inflation Reduction Act, to some extent disadvantageous to Chinese battery companies. At the same time, to remain competitive and expand, Chinese automotive firms are pursuing partnerships in countries that have trade agreements with the United States, aiming to navigate around the U.S. restrictions. According to Voice of America on February 29th, BYD and another Chinese automotive company, Chery, plan to build factories in Mexico. SAIC Motors, MG brand, also plans to strengthen its business in Mexico. Additionally, the luxury electric vehicle brand Polestar, jointly developed by Chinese Geely and Volvo, plans to start production in South Carolina by mid-2024. The news of BYD's plans to establish a factory in Mexico has alerted the U.S. National Manufacturing Alliance. They are calling on the Biden administration to prevent Chinese car manufacturers from selling to the U.S. market through Mexico. They fear that cheap cars supported by policies and funding from the Chinese government could threaten the American automotive industry. The U.S. National Manufacturing Alliance stated in a report, the reason Chinese cars are so cheap is that they are supported and subsidized by the Chinese government. The entry of Chinese cars into the U.S. market could ultimately be disastrous for the American automotive industry. The report points out that vehicles and mechanical parts produced in Mexico can qualify for preferential treatment under the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement and are eligible for a $7,500 electric vehicle tax credit. Therefore, they are calling on the U.S. government to close this commercial backdoor that could be exploited by Chinese car companies to prevent mass closures of American car manufacturers and resulting unemployment. Anna Ashton, Director of China Corporate Affairs at Eurasia Group, also mentioned that many Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers, including BYD, have begun or are planning to bypass the high U.S. tariffs through Mexico. She said that if these vehicles are assembled in Mexico, the USMCA allows cars imported from Mexico to enter the U.S. tariff-free. This would allow these cars to enter the U.S. without facing various tariff-related restrictions, causing measures intended to protect the U.S. market workers to be ineffective. Currently, EVs produced in China and directly exported to the U.S. are subject to a 27.5% tariff, including a 2.5% conventional car import tariff and an additional 25% tariff imposed by the Trump administration on Chinese-made cars in 2018. In contrast, moving production to Mexico not only allows for a lower 2.5% tariff, but if the strict local content standards of the USMCA are met, could even result in a tax exemption. Therefore, a bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers is urging the Biden administration to increase import tariffs on Chinese cars and investigate ways to prevent Chinese car companies from exporting to the U.S. via Mexico. Bloomberg reported that sources familiar with the matter revealed the Biden administration is considering imposing import restrictions on smart cars and related components from China, going beyond tariffs to address growing concerns about data security in the U.S. These measures would apply EVs and components from China, regardless of where they are ultimately assembled, to prevent Chinese manufacturers from shipping cars and components to the U.S. market through third-party countries like Mexico. One source mentioned that these measures might also apply to other countries where the U.S. has data security concerns. Commentator Jingyuan Tang believes that China continues to dump goods internationally to alleviate excess capacity. If the U.S. takes action against China, the world will accelerate its economic decoupling from China this year. The root of the trade war lies with the CCP, leading to China's isolation internationally, along with an economic decline in the near future.